Thanks to this comment, we have a new video. I would love your take on Tears of the Kingdom because I'm very, very split on that one. Well, let's do it then. Instead of focusing on the triforce of the Nintendo Switch like in my previous video, we are going to see if Tears of the Kingdom is actually a bad sequel by taking the triforce of what makes Tears of the Kingdom. Or rather, what makes people not think it's a good sequel, and we will see if they are correct. And we have to begin with the infamous DLC. I've been gaming for quite some time, and I don't know what it is, this new fascination where we have a hugely popular game, and they do a lot in this new iteration, this sequel, and we're now labeling, oh, this could have just been DLC. Did we play the same game? I'm a little confused here. I even went to some more recent reviews. That phrase is still being thrown around. Oh, this is DLC, it's 1.5. And when you look at it on paper, yes, you have the same map of Hyrule. But you also have the Sky Islands and the Depths. Right there, that's a pretty expansive sequel in my eyes. Could you have added that to Breath of the Wild? I have no idea. I'm not a game developer. But are we now saying that if you visit any of the same locations from a previous entry that is now considered DLC because they didn't expand enough? That seems a little strange to me. But let's break it down even more. This is the same map, but does it feel the same? No, I don't think it does. A lot has changed. There are new objectives to do. Yes, you are going through the same locations, but I do have to come right here with this little aside. I have not played Breath of the Wild since 2017, minus to grab footage for that previous video you watched, hopefully. So I was ready to explore this map again, but it feels so much more dense. There's a lot more to do in this map now. And are we just going to ignore that we actually got basically proper dungeons now? The lead up to these main dungeons is incredible. The amount of tasks you have to do to unlock the dungeons. That right there has added so much to the world map. I think about unlocking the water temple in this game. All the little puzzle elements, you have to go fly up to this fish-looking island in the sky to beam light down to go underneath the water, then shoot up all the way to the temple at the top. We had nothing like that in Breath of the Wild. So yeah, when I go over to the Zora's domain, it's the same domain that I played in Breath of the Wild, but you have all these extra elements that are adding to the experience, and I feel like I'm playing a different game. It feels so much different because of the elements they added. Yeah, I'm going to some of the same locations, but a lot of those locations have changed. Whether that makes it DLC in your mind, I just don't see it. For me, but if you were only looking at this aspect from the outside, you weren't really running around the world, but you're just hearing, oh, it's the same map. They only added, 2 different big locations. One's big, one's in between. I could see on paper, this doesn't really make sense, right? You could see, oh yeah, maybe this is just an expansion, a little add-on. But when you're running around and seeing the differences, it just has a different feel to it. You will understand it when you're on the ground level as Link, cool, long-haired Link. The elements they added change up the game so much. And that is exactly what we're talking about next, is the abilities. These abilities are absolutely game-changing, and they function so differently than the previous abilities. I do miss my bombs, so I could do this. I can't believe how crazy the Ascend ability is in this game. It takes traversal to a whole new level. Recall feels a little bit safe for Breath of the Wild, but it's a really good addition to this game, especially with how you're going to be manipulating machines a lot. And, Fuse is just that ability. You're like, you complained all about weapons breaking. Well, here you go. This is a way to fuse 2 weapons to make those weapons last longer. They're still going to break, but this is kind of that fix for you. And oh boy, does that single ability, the fuse mechanic, changes the way you play this game, because you just want to experiment even more. So Breath of the Wild is all about going out and exploring, which this game is too, but this is about finding new items and seeing what they do when you put it on something. I put it like putting a spore mushroom on your shield, so when an enemy attacks, it makes all this haze, or they fall asleep, or put in an eye on an arrow so it has heat-seeking abilities. This ability ties into everything that makes this game feel different, where you just have a different vision when you're going around this world. Now, if we go back to the comments from that previous video, it later on says, I'm not having as much fun as I was in Breath of the Wild, but I'm still playing it. I can't speak for them exactly, but I think a large part about this is You don't know what you're going to expect from Tears of the Kingdom, and you are going to be doing a lot of the same things, but how you go about them is generally much different than in Breath of the Wild. How the world is set up, how you're supposed to traverse it now with knowing that you can make your own creations, and the schematics in this game, how creative people have gotten. You know, in Breath of the Wild, all those videos were about the physics engine and what you could do to like skyrocket yourself across the map. Well, now it's all about what you can build and what you can stretch your imagination to and just build something that is insane, like a giant flying mech that's shooting everything. Or you can, you know, see something in the beginning of the game and realize, I should hit that. And then this happens. I think these abilities that they added make the game not feel like DLC at all. I feel like it makes it feel like a completely different experience. Those mechanics are obviously tied to also the new areas, because they want you to build stuff so you can just fly around from one sky island to the next, or they want you to go down into the depths and scavenge around for new items that you can combine that get stronger. And while you're collecting those resources, you'll upgrade your power cells to be able to create even more massive and creative machines, and the loop continues. But these abilities work in this world because if you brought these abilities over to Breath of the Wild, I think it could work. But what they added to the actual environment ties into this. These falling ruins, these half-constructed things where you're like, oh yeah, I can put a hook on there, take a minecart and just fly around on this. Man, it's just so good. But I know that the crafting part, you have to be in that kind of mood for this style of game. So, you know, if you're not feeling it, maybe put it down for a little bit, come back to it, be in the mood to be able to turn it on the brain, trying to get creative. But I would say overall, people enjoy these abilities. And I don't think that's part of the criticism of the sequel. I think they added unique new abilities, which you want a sequel to do. You don't want the same stuff going back into it. You want that same feeling, but you want to be most of the stuff to be additive and be more exciting than the last time. That Ascend ability sure does get me excited. You know what else gets me really excited? Ganondorf. This might be the most divisive part about how it handled being a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Does the story match up? And here's the thing. When I think about both games, when I think of story moments, and it's generally tied to memories or the ending and beginning of the game, I think Tears of the Kingdom comes out on top in every single one of those instances. I think it has a better beginning, it has a way better ending, and I think most of the memories are better than in the previous game. That doesn't mean they were bad. I think they were kind of lackluster. There are some ones that I really enjoyed, but the culmination of the story of Tears of the Kingdom is more satisfying to me as a player. Mainly because I love Ganondorf and I love this iteration of him. When you first meet him, how creepy and how powerful he seems is amazing. And I feel that power all the way through until the final battle as well. Now, what doesn't make sense, right? There has to be something that doesn't make sense. And it's all the old Guardians, it's all the old tech. Nobody really talks about it in this world, which that's a weird and strange thing in this sequel. But I like to think back on the lore in general. The games generally don't talk to each other. When I think of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, that being a sequel, you don't get many references to that previous game. What I love about Zelda games is you can jump in at any one of them and be fine. Even this sequel to Breath of the Wild, you can jump in and I don't think you're missing a lot. The reverse to that is, yeah, that's probably not the best sequel. If you're looking for that interconnected, everything that you did in the previous game mattered, and they're going to bring up all these little Easter eggs. Well, actually, that happens so much in this game because you are meeting characters from the previous game and seeing how things have changed and the world around you and see how that's changed. So in that regard, I think that's a great sequel. But there are some omissions and just stuff that doesn't get the limelight, like all that old technology in the Guardians. And they don't really talk about the old champions much. But if we focused all on those things, wouldn't it seem even more like your DLC? Now we got a whole new cast of champions with different powers. We got the same world, but we got added maps. We have a giant new threat as Ganondorf in the gloom. And I do love the story onset of that. You know, Hyrule has been saved, but there's this gloom coming out of the castle making people sick. What a great setup to this world. And oh my gosh, the way Zelda gets so excited in the beginning because she's discovering all these new murals. Oh, it's so good. But at the end of the day, when I'm looking at this game, or Zelda games in general, I don't need everything to connect. And when I come to the story, I think about the moments. Not the overarching storyline or the lore, the actual moments. Me going into a new dungeon. Me seeing Ganondorf transform into a crazy powerful being. Me discovering a new area. So for me, the lore stuff doesn't matter as much. When I was diving off that sky island, I didn't care about where did all the Guardians go. I wanted to know, why is Zelda showing up, and what does Hyrule Castle look like now that it floated up into the air? And the mystery of the Master Sword disappearing and it's going over to Zelda. For me, the past Zelda storyline and how it truly affected this world and how it came, the conclusion to that, oh my gosh, beautiful. I was satisfied for that storyline, for this world, and especially for Zelda's character. It's so sad and so gripping, and I love that character development for her. And just my boy Ganondorf. Oh my gosh, he's so good. Oh, I love it so much. Especially by the end where he's abandoning who he is because he just wants to destroy Link.
My mind, everything.
And sometimes that's enough. That's just enough for me. When I look back on this, does any of this make this game a bad sequel? I think you could argue it in your favor. I don't think this is DLC. Absolutely not. Could you have wanted it to go in a different direction? Absolutely. I mean, this comment says it right here. There's a big part of me that wishes that we were in the past Hyrule that Zelda was in for us to explore and see the differences. I could see that being a possibility, but for me, having past Zelda's influence, being more directly linked to the dragon and the tears of this modern world was more exciting to me than the thought of that. But I'd still play that game. Why not? If you have all the abilities and the world building of this game, oh yeah, sign me up. But I'm absolutely happy with what we got. New abilities, plenty of new things to explore in this Hyrule world, and a story that has some of the better moments compared to Breath of the Wild. And let's not forget expansive dungeons. Yes, we were missing that before. It's in this game. That expensive lead up to the dungeon, that's part of the dungeon in my eyes. Now, if you want more Zelda content, well, you can click on this video where we discuss one of those games in there is the Zelda game. And you can let me know if I'm right or wrong. Or if you want to go into a more in-depth ranking, well, I have a podcast episode for you in the links down below. So I've got options for you. And click the like button too if while you're at it. I don't know. But if you really want to be a part of this channel, well, all you have to do is comment about something and maybe I'll make a video on it. Is there a game out there you want a little bit more of a deep dive on? Here's your chance.